President Obama says we dodged a bullet in reference to the attempted Christmas Day bombing aboard a Detroit-bound flight. His aides say there was, quote, a failure of intelligence. And now Americans are saying, can the government really keep us safe? When it comes to flying these days, are you scared in the air? It's your call right now. Hello, everyone, and thank you for joining us. I'm Lynn Doyle with a debate this hour on whether we are really safe when we're flying these days and whether the government overreacts to a single isolated incident by imposing restrictions on people who are of no threat whatsoever, people like you and me. This most recent debate being triggered by the so-called Christmas Day attempted bombing, where a passenger aboard a flight into Detroit allegedly tried to blow up the plane with explosives taped to his body. He failed, apparently, but also failing the security measures intended to keep this kind of thing from happening. As a result, new fears have been raised about our safety in the skies, additional restrictions are in place, and for the most part, it's just regular people who are most affected by the long lines and extra security. So how about you? Do you feel safe when you're flying, or are you scared in the air? We're going to find out what you think in just a moment, but first, let's pose that question to our panel. This hour, it includes our old friend, Edward Trzanski, who, as you know, is a national security, intelligence, and political analyst. He's also a senior fellow at the Foreign Policy Research Institute. Joining us today in a different role is Tariq El-Shabazz. He's a former Philadelphia Assistant District Attorney. He is now in private practice with El-Shabazz and Harris. Attorney Fred Teesey is back with us. He's a commercial pilot and a former federal prosecutor who has handled hijacking cases. And rounding out our panel, Mary Catherine Roper, a senior staff attorney with the ACLU of Pennsylvania. What a great group. Can't wait to hear what they have to say. We're going to join in with you all as well. But first, let me just toss it out there, guys. Are we safe when we get in the skies today, or should all of us just stay grounded?
I'll jump in because I'm not smart enough not to. I think we are. I mean, I really do. We go to tremendous lengths to ensure the safety of the flying public, and we have millions of flights on an annual basis. But terrorists are trying every day to find a kink in the armor and do harm to citizens, and so that's a fight that's going to continue forever. But today we're safe.
The question most people are asking is, could we be safer? I think most of us understand there's no such thing as 100% sure nothing is going to happen. So the question is, what's going to make us safer? Is it having everybody walk through a body scanning machine, or is it going to be turning up the intelligence and having the intelligence services actually finish their job when
now,
they
identify? Now, is that an
them?
oxymoron? Because there are an awful lot of people who are watching this right now saying a failure of intelligence. There was no intelligence to begin with when it came to this crew.
Well, there was a lot of intelligence, but it wasn't put together and used in an effective fashion.
Well, what's the use of having it?
Well, wait a minute. That speaks beyond not just a structure that collects information, but the question of what you're going to do with it. And I'd suggest the question, first of all, I agree with Fred. Yes, I think we're relatively safe. We tend to be safer after things like this because everyone's on high alert. But at the same time, you're going to be much more inconvenienced trying to get on a plane. And it speaks to this mindset question. Lynn, we spend all of our time looking for a bomb. People who do counterintelligence very well, the Israelis, they look for bombers. That's a very important distinction.
But except this, one of the things that we have to understand is that our system as we have it now is broken. The people that are involved, the TSA, those workers, if employees are sleeping at machines that they should be up, if in fact people are walking the wrong way through a particular exit that they should not be walking through, if there are dogs that are not passing the test, then it seems to me that our concentration should be on training people, making sure we have dogs that pass the test.
Yes, but Tariq,
making sure that we have people that stay up. In
this particular case, what happened is you had a very prominent businessman in Nigeria walk in to the American embassy, not once, twice, but 3 times, meet with the CIA, the State Department, the FBI, and say, listen, my son fell off the deep end of the jihad pool. He's been in all the wrong places. He's done terrible things. State Department didn't pull his visa. He got on a plane paying cash one way
with no
luggage, going to Detroit, lightly clothed, not ready for the weather, and no one said, gee, this is a problem.
So with all of these red flags that apparently went up, there truly was a failure of intelligence.
As it relates to him.
Well,
and let's be very clear.
Yeah.
Let's be very clear now. Let's not throw the baby out with the bathwater. As it relates to him, the fact that the father said what he said, the fact that we have these other factors, it seems to me that that evidence indicates that this individual should be stopped. Does it mean that anyone who is a Muslim, anyone that is in a particular area, anyone that travels from a particular country, anyone who had visited Yemen 20 years ago should be stopped and frisked and looked at, and anyone that is wearing a niqab or a headscarf should be structured to have certain cavity searches or anything to that nature?
But
No.
what
So
it
does
comes
mean
down
that?
to is the way you stop bombers is before they get to the airport. Is that you have that kind of intelligence, you follow up on that kind of intelligence, and you have a narrow enough group of people that are suspected that you can actually spend some time with them. Having 500,000 people on a watch list, you can't watch
Does
500,000
anyone else find
people.
that to be incredulous? When I read that number, I actually looked twice to make sure that it wasn't a typo. 500,000 people,
No,
half
no,
a
wait.
million people are on a watch list?
But wait a minute. If you consider the British, for instance, they have roughly 2 million Muslims in England. They estimate that 15 to 20% are radicalized. That's 300,000, 400,000 people just in England.
In the estimation.
But there's reason they have these estimates. Back to what Tariq says. In this particular case, let me mention another case where the system broke down horribly. Major Hassan, the man responsible for the massacre at Fort Hood. There wasn't one warning bell. There was an entire symphony of warning bells where people said what he is expressing by way of views, his conduct, the kinds of people he's communicating with.
But
all of this,
you're
You're
not going to find anyone, any intelligent thinking individual, Muslim or non-Muslim, Arab or non-Arab, that's going to say when you see those type of bells ringing, that's not somebody that you should investigate or talk to. Everyone is in agreement with that.
But it didn't happen.
And it didn't happen, and it should. My concern when you erode the Constitution because of a fear factor, you erode human rights, civil rights, and any other kind of rights you can possibly have because of individuals who have given you red flag after red flag. They gave you Auburn flag, they gave you white flag, whatever flag you want, they gave it to you. But now everyone else, good citizens, everyone else has to suffer. That's a problem.
And that's the question that I posed at the very, very beginning. By putting all of these new restrictions in place, yet again, more restrictions that we have to deal with, are we really solving the problem, or is the problem at a level that the five of us have absolutely no contact with, except perhaps Ed?
Well, no, the problem, look, here's where the problem is. First of all, you got to realize something. We almost had an incredible disaster on Christmas Day over Detroit. We missed it by that much. This guy had 40 grams more PETN than Richard Reed did. This was almost a really bad disaster. But if you've studied enough aviation accidents over 20 years, both as a prosecutor and in private practice, I can tell you that when an airplane comes out of the sky, it's never one thing. It is a series of mistakes that took place that led up to the disaster. And that's exactly what happened in here. And a knee-jerk reaction, both with respect to screening for dangerous items at the airport, which is too late as far as I'm concerned, and overreaching and going too broadly in connection with screening for bombers, which is a problem as well. There has to be a reasoned, rational response that has to address the mistakes that were made in this instance and make sure it doesn't happen again.
And I'm going to invite our viewers to weigh in here as well. You've heard what our panel has to say about this. Now, what do you think of all of the restrictions when you're flying these days? Do you actually feel safer, or do you think they inconvenience the wrong people? And does the government overreact to these incidents, or do you think it's handling them exactly the way it should? If you want to tell us what you think about this, if you have questions or comments, we invite you to go ahead and email your thoughts and opinions to me. A couple of ways you can do it. You can log on to csnphilly.com, put in It's Your Call or IYC in the search engine. That'll take you to my webpage where you can leave us a comment. We share all of your comments with our guests. You can email me directly right here at the network. It's TCN_IYC at ComcastNetwork.com. If you want to be the most effective, though, find me on Facebook, MySpace, and YouTube. We're on there pretty much 24/7 like the rest of the world. And it was amazing the kind of reaction that we got when we asked the question about this. Most people are not scared to fly. They feel like, you know what, the chances that something will happen on a flight that they're on is pretty slim. And on the other hand, they say, they're just being inconvenienced because of something that's happened elsewhere. For example, you mentioned Richard Reed. Why am I taking off my shoes?